my name is Alexander, and we are back today, this time again with Alexander Nishino. He is an actor, producer, and director based in downtown Los Angeles. And today we are talking about acting in LA. Alex recently moved, well, a couple of years ago, Alex moved from West Covina to Los Angeles. And he has been an actor throughout his journey in West Covina, and now he's making it in LA. And today we're going to talk about just his tips and tricks and how-tos to where making that transition from a non-acting community or a small acting community to a much larger one, and how he made that jump and what he's doing now to still get jobs, still get work, and still be creative. And Alex, I want to welcome you, buddy. If you want to give yourself a quick little intro also.
Sure, yeah. You covered it pretty well. My name is Alex Nishino. I was pretty much raised my entire life in the Inland Empire. West Covina is my hometown. Before I moved out here to Los Angeles about roughly 2.5 years ago, I spent most of my creative endeavors in the Inland Empire area. So a lot of community theater, a lot of independent film. And that's pretty much where I came from and what gave me the foundations for, what I do now and how I approach what I do now. Of course, the city itself has taught me a lot, in terms of adjusting to a more industrial environment, because it's definitely not industrial towards the Inland Empire area. Not that I was familiar, not with what I was familiar with. There was a lot more of a creatively led. It was more of a creatively led experience, is what I'm trying to say.
No worries. So Alex, obviously when you were in West Covina, we worked on small indie films, a lot of fun stuff, shorts. You did a lot of theater also, from what I know. What changed when you moved to LA? Because you're in downtown, and I know that, obviously you're, like what was it like? Once you moved, I'm sure you made some kind of to-do list on, okay, I need to get this done. I have to get that done. For you, what was the first thing that you wanted to tackle as an actor once you moved to LA? Was it getting like an agent? Was it just trying to, build some more work? Was it just building your acting community network out that way?
Everyone has a different comfort zone, I think, in terms of what they want to approach first and what gives them the most security. So for me, I started building a network before I moved to Los Angeles, and that's a luxury that I feel is it's a modern comfort because of the internet. So you can start reaching out to people and creating almost like a landing pad for yourself before you even start going anywhere. Really,
that's smart. Yeah.
Some people like to. There's a lot of different kinds of people out there, because some people, they just like to dive in, and just deal with whatever chaos that happens or whatever unexpected.
Just jump in the fire.
Yeah, jump into the fire. I'm not that guy. I don't like jumping into fires. Like I like calculating how big the fire is gonna be and what kind of firefighter out there I can get the fire. Like I don't know. I'm not I'm a very calculated. I suppose you could say it's more of a producer mindset.
Yeah.
You're calculating. It's like damage control. I think more about damage control, because I don't know about anybody watching, but I have nerves. I have.
You're a human being.
And I have nerves. And I'm a human being, but some people can handle. Some people are cut off from those things. Like I'm totally not. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's just understanding how you work as a person, and it's like, okay, if this is how I am, like how can I structure things to where it's towards my benefit, where I don't have to experience too much stress, and and I can kind of gauge what I have to do and what I need to do. Like I'm that kind of person. That's what I did. So before I moved to Los Angeles, I thought a lot about, all right, so how do I create value? How do I attach value to myself? And how do I use that value to have the confidence to communicate with people who are in this industry? Obviously, it's like, okay, when I first started transitioning out here, most of the people that I worked with were in independent film. And for me, that comes easiest for me. I can communicate with people in independent film much easier than on the industrial side, because I'll say now, like even on the industrial side, I'm still learning about that. Like I'm still trying to understand how all that works, and what kind of mindset you have to enter that arena. But when it comes to independent film and independent theater, like that's where I come from, and it's easy for me to talk to people who are from those backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, okay, and that leads into my next bit, which is, I think personally for me, I like approaching acting from just the artistic standpoint. That gives me security. You know, that's where I come from. That's why I love doing it. So when I first started transitioning out here, you know, I used a lot of Facebook groups. I reached out to people I knew. I tried to tap into communities and try to introduce myself that way. But like figuring out where people come, I mean, obviously now it's different because of COVID, but like before, pre-COVID, it was all about trying to figure out where are the main congregation centers, where for at least, you know, I'm Asian American.
Yeah.
I'm a male. I'm Japanese. I'm Cambodian. But I also am very familiar with like Chinese people and just other Asian people from different ethnicities. So like, okay, I'm comfortable in those areas. So start there. You know, where am I most comfortable? Let's start there. There's nothing wrong with that. I know some people, they feel like, oh, I need a challenge. For me, it's like, no, I mean, things can be a lot simpler, you know? You don't have to push yourself so into such an uncomfortable zone, you know, as to maybe venture outside of maybe your ethnic group, your cultural group, you know? Like if there's a foundation that's already been laid there in the city or wherever you're going, then to me, it's like, oh, why not go there first? You know, you don't have to stay there.
That makes sense.
It's just that yeah, there's people here that, at least in terms of, you know, my appearance, like there's people who've been doing it for longer and have had through different hurdles that were more in place perhaps 10, 20 years ago. Like there's no harm in reaching out to people who, you know, are more experienced and have traveled, you know, the route that you've traveled already.
Yeah.
I found security in that. So yeah, to kind of reiterate, whether you're from a small town outside of the state, or you're from the Inland Empire, or even further south, you know, towards San Diego, and you want to go to the city and you want to do the acting thing. Like, I think hands down, like definitely start to reach out to people online because it makes the transition so much easier. Like my transition was completely seamless. Like when I moved, like I'm a big person about scheduling and like kept keeping everything, you know, in check and like I have to do this by this time. Like I think about that, but when I came out here, I was already like, okay, I know where I'm gonna live. I know what my expenses are going to be. And with the parameters of my expenses, I know what I can invest in creatively and, you know, professionally. And I know which classes I want to take. Like all that stuff, I feel you can figure out before you even get here.
Yeah. And Alex, speaking of classes, I know before you moved to Los Angeles, you were traveling back and forth, taking an acting class, I think in Burbank, right? Or somewhere in that direction.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sure you probably built up a large community of actors there also, right? Or no?
Yes, that is true. I want to talk about that too, because I know people that are living this lifestyle that I don't live this lifestyle anymore. But I was so 50-50. At the time, I didn't feel like I was living this 50-50 lifestyle. But in retrospect, I was living this lifestyle where I was living in West Covina and I had a motorcycle because I thought it was financially much more efficient, you know. But
in theory, it is.
Yeah, right.
Especially
you know,
with LA traffic, you can kind of just zoom right through.
100%. I mean, in theory, but then once reality comes into the picture, there's a whole other set of consequences that come with the motorcycle. But I will say that, like at the time, I was driving a motorcycle and I was commuting to Burbank from West Covina back and forth, and that was almost like a 40-minute to 30 to 50-minute commute, very exhausting. But at the time, I thought it was easier. You know, I had a place in West Covina. I had a safe job in West Covina. And I was going to this acting class to try and, you know, get back into it, get trained again and get my mindset, you know, realigned. But I will say, though, just to make a comment about that distance, it's like, okay, if you know you want to do acting and it's something you want to do professionally, I would push yourself to take the extra steps to start planting seeds in terms of like where you want to live in Los Angeles. Where can you work in Los Angeles? Because it'll save you so much more stress and you won't feel like you're living in sort of like an artistic/professional denial. Like it's a lot of travel time, you know, it's a lot of energy. you're spending more money.
And you're trying to go to like auditions and, you know, on a weekly basis. And that can be gas intensive. That could be just, you know, that takes time from you
Yeah.
working. So it's hard for you to
Yeah,
support
yeah.
yourself, I would imagine.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the person, but I think so too. I would say so too. Like, yeah, if you're going to these classes and you're getting auditions and you have to go to and you're living so far away at the same time, it's like, I mean, a lot of it's living, and it's not to say that it wouldn't work, but I do think that it does make things a little more complicated when life could be a lot simpler for you if you're trying to pursue this professionally. Even, you know, I'm not going to say that I'm the foremost, you know, a source of information on the topic, but I can say that I have a bare minimum experience of like, okay, these are the things you need to do to just start your career.
Yeah.
And try, you know, like I
just
have
get
that
ball
experience.
rolling,
Obviously,
basically.
get the ball rolling. Yeah, I haven't made it onto any major sitcoms or major motion motion pictures, like features. But like I know I'm heading in that direction. I know I'm surrounded by all the resources. I put myself around all the resources that will allow me to do those things that I really, really want to do. It's just a matter of constantly exposing yourself to those resources.
You're crafting that journey to get there, basically, by planting these seeds.
Yes.
You're basically making your own road there, but you have more control over it because you're kind of like slowly kind of just piecing it together to get to that point where you are going to have that break.
Right.
Nice, man. So Alex, I want to ask you, man, because people wondering or people watching might wonder, you have some experience, some, you know, on and off experience with having an agent, you know, someone who's kind of like marketing you or helping you get auditions. You've applied. I'm not sure. So what do you have? What would you recommend? Like, is it worth it to have an agent in Los Angeles, or can you just find like websites like Backstage or whatever you want, you know, and just apply yourself? Like, do you find yourself getting more auditions through an agent or on your own?
Mm-hmm. You know, I think that's a really good question. I think it depends on what phase of your career you're in. But then again, you know, it's different to everybody. For me, it's like I came from a purely artistic background, so I feel preferentially it's nice to start from a purely artistic background because you build up a love for what you're doing, and then you jump in, and then you know then the business stuff gets mixed in with it, and you have to learn that side of things. But at least you have something to go back to, closer to your heart that can keep you going. And what matters is what keeps you going, you know? I think that, you know, in terms of the question of does having an agent help? It always helps to have somebody representing you, you know, because only, well, you know, it's like, okay, so when you look at the basic breakdown services, you only have access to a certain part of it. If you don't have representation, then you only have access to the public breakdowns, you know, in a lot of independent work. You won't have access to most of the studio auditions, auditions with a higher budget. Like you won't have access to those. Agent, you actually, I don't know if a lot of people knew this, but you actually have to have a state license to be an agent. And they have their own organization that they rely on for their information and keeping up to date with what's going on with the industry. Yeah. So if you have an agent, you have much more access to higher profile work. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to get that higher profile work depending on who that agent is, because some agents have more access, some agents have longer, some agencies are much younger, and they've just started planting their seeds in the last 10 years or 5 years even. So it just depends, you know, it's different. It just depends because some agents, it's like, okay, you have an older agent, so they've had time to build up relationships, you know, with a lot of the casting directors in town. But you have a younger agent, well, that person's more tech savvy. You know, they're thinking
it's a give
more
and take.
Media, right? So it depends on, you really have to kind of ask yourself like what it is that you're looking for from an agent, where you're at career. Because there's no black and white. There's definitely a lot of gray because some people start out with no artistic background, whatsoever, but they find themselves really attracted to the concept of show business. And they love that. So I'm not going to say, you know, just because you start from an artistic background, you have a leg up. No, like some people skip ahead to just straight into like, I just want to be a part of the entertainment industry. And they love that part. And that's what pushes them to do well and to work on their craft. So I can't speak for every angle, but I do think like wherever you come from, what matters to you as an actor is what will keep you going longest, and what will enrich your journey.
Yeah. It sounds like, Alex, like if obviously if you don't have an agent, your network is only as big as what you can see in front of you, which is these public gigs that maybe don't pay as much. They're more indie. They might be more creatively fulfilling for you, but they don't pay the bills. They can't sustain you long term. And I think you made a great point, as you want to have the kind of work that will be able to support you long term as an actor. Because obviously, this, I know this, being freelance is very hard. You're only as good as your last gig, and you had to keep finding new gigs to kind of keep going. And so if you choose to not have an agent, or if you just can't get an agent, you're only limited to what you can see in front of you. But obviously, if you have that agent, if you have that representation fighting for you and getting you access, or putting you in the rooms of these bigger gigs, like these Marvel movies, or just like a regular commercial that's going to air on TV or something. Obviously those might pay a whole lot more, but you might get less work from those. But so it's kind of a give and take. And it sounds like you have it, depending on who you are and what keeps you motivated, because that's different for everyone. It sounds like, maybe I can speak for myself, but it sounds like you need to have a mix of the creative work that keeps you in love with your passion in your career, but also it's a balance. You want to have a diverse portfolio of the creative work that might pay a bit less, but also some commercial work that will actually pay the bills and keep you going.
Right. Well, see, it's good that you bring that up. I haven't reached that level where like the work is paying my bills. Like I'm still trying to understand that, and also to tap into that. Like I'm still like I'm personally where I'm at right now. It's like I'm still getting circulated through casting director portfolios. Like I'm still trying to get into their database. I'm still trying to like become a regular face that they see on a continual basis.
Yeah.
And that they can think of almost like naturally, right? Because that's what we're working for. We're working towards familiarity and reliability, and just like, what, even as a DP, it's like, okay, you want them to call you back, for another gig. But the only way you can do that is like, okay, you have to leave an impression, and you have to have the actual opportunity to show that you can do the job at least once. So they have a reference point and they know, oh, this person can do this level of work. So I can bring him again and he'll consistently do that level of work every time.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part about trying to get into the industry. It's almost like, it's like when you're a teenager and you're asked, you want a job, and you have no job experience, and you try to apply with, you have your resume, your non-existent resume that you kind of try to put together.
It's a catch-22.
Yeah, it's a catch-22, but at the same time, it's like, it is, but it's not, because it just depends on how you approach it, who you talk to, where you go. Like, there are other people that made it in. It's just that they did it their own way, and they figured it out their own way, and what worked in a way that worked for them and that they understood. So I feel like that's the biggest part of it. It's really understanding how you work as an individual, and understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are, and then trying to figure out, okay, who is it that I can talk to that will lead me to the next, and you're following this trail of breadcrumbs
Mm-hmm.
to hopefully that life-changing job, freelance job,
I hear you, man. Alex, I want to ask you something. So I remember, I want to say like a year ago or something like that. We had a conversation because we talk a lot sometimes. And in that conversation, you were telling me how you were kind of learning to analyze yourself as an actor, but like from an outwards point of view, like looking in, and you were kind of like not typecasting yourself, but you were trying to figure out what you could get typecasted as, and then learning to capitalize on that, and hopefully getting more work as that. But just so, because obviously, like, every actor has a different look, but based on their performance, they can change that look. But, from a headshot, you really can't do, your performance is non-existent. It's just your look. And maybe you can talk about how you, I guess, learn to see the patterns of the roles you get, and how you went to refine that to hopefully get more roles in that. Because obviously, yeah, you want to have a big portfolio of work, but you also want to keep the lights on or keep getting gigs.
Right. At least keep getting gigs.
Yeah. And let's say, you know, like if you're trying to play Batman, but you look like Robin, you know, like that's not going to work. You have to realize that you're Robin and not Batman.
Right. Or you're trying to get into this really strange comedy story. Yeah, like some backwards universe. Like understanding your strengths as a person, I feel like doesn't even just apply towards the entertainment industry as an actor, but also just in real life. Because a typecast isn't just like a one could look at it from the perspective that a typecast is a stereotypical perspective of you that is beyond your control. And that could be taken as a strength or a weakness. Understanding your stereotype, I think, is incredibly important because it's how you navigate in the world, regardless of if you acknowledge it or not. You know, it's not something that you can control, but you can trick yourself into thinking it doesn't matter, which in some ways it does, and in some ways it doesn't. You know, I think for me, like if I were to speak of myself, like that's one of the great things about the independent work that you do when you first start out. Like when you're just trying to build up a portfolio, yeah, you're doing a bunch of student film work that pays zero to like a small, you know, maybe something in 3 digits that isn't 1,000, or you know what I mean, or 100. Like it just depends, honestly. But the point being, it's just that you do those. I think what's great about those earlier gigs is that they give you these telltale signs of what it is that you fit into, because there's a reason that person wanted you in that part, because something about you made sense to them. And they may or may not know what they're doing. You know, they're doing an independent film. A lot of the times it's their first or second or third project. You don't know, you know, but there's something about just another human being who's passionate about what they're doing, who's trying to write a story and tell a story. Like they're still trying their best in their own way based off their limited knowledge to make something that makes sense to them, at least at the bare minimum to the person that wrote it. Like, so when they're looking at a queue of all these actors, like in a funny way, people are very, very good at noticing even if they're outside of the entertainment industry, just regular people. Like we're all very, very adept because we've all grown up watching movies. We've all grown up with media, motion pictures in our lives. Like television is pretty much it's the foundational ideology that we're all raised on. So based off that, it's like, okay, even a regular person could look at you and draw their own conclusion about who they think you are or what they think you are. And not to say that we should listen 100% to what that means, because, you know, some of these stereotypes are not very good. Some of these stereotypes are good. However, you know, there are certain truths that we can pay attention to, certain half-truths that we can pay attention to. Like for me, like I spent all last year before COVID, like I was getting roles month after month after month in these independent films, which I was really happy to have done because they were very revealing for me. I tend to be cast quite often in the roles of like kind of that kind of endearing best friend, you know. Like, oh, he'll be there to listen to your problems and probably give you an answer, you know, like, yeah, you should do this, you know, like stop yourself. Oh, I'm that supportive friend. Or on the opposite end, I get cast as like a sociopathic, almost serial killer, like Hannibal. Like
it's weird because they kind of go hand in hand.
It's funny what they do, and then they all kind of stem from the idea of like fundamentally what they both have in common. You know, on the dark side and the light side of it is I'm a trustworthy, nice person, and it's funny how you can take that and twist it 2 different ways. Yeah. Trustworthy, nice person really is a trustworthy, nice person, and trustworthy, nice person who has a double face, which makes exceptionally villainous. So like that's what I tend to get casted. That's me. And I feel like people, go on.
And for those listening or watching, if you guys want to cast Alex, please look him up. He is a phenomenal actor, and I have seen him in actually both roles. I think I've casted him as the horror figure, and I've casted him as a comedy figure. So definitely look into him because he's phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, man. This guy gave me most of my first opportunities to work as an actor in film. So we have that history, and it's funny that you can wait. I have a question. My question is like, What do you remember? You have so many questions. Small for story. Do you remember when you were because the first okay, let's break it down. So the first time I worked with Alex Hogard, it was for his web series Hellman's Now I can't remember what sparked the initial conversation. Like I don't know how we met the first time. I think it was through Facebook or like some Facebook, like it was like a Facebook post or something. But like he was casting for this web series for this. It was like a kind of a crime thriller web series, and I was cast as the alter ego of this mob boss's son. So like this son was this character who was very like soft and gentle and very sensitive and he didn't want to hurt anybody. But I was like it was like Jekyll and Hyde. You know, I was the voice in his head that took on like a physical manifestation for him to encourage him to like do these horrible things. So
you make the series sound way cooler than what it really was.
It was cool. It was badass. It was badass. No one can take that away from us, man. But like, do you remember when we did the audition for that? Because like it was at the fountain in front of the Sophia B. Corp Theater at Mount San Antonio College, and it was down to me and one other guy. Do you remember that audition?
Oh man, it's sad because I think I kind of do. It was like 10 years ago. I want to remember it, but
this guy's like, it was 10 years ago. Let it go, Alex. Like,
no. Like I just like
I kid.
Like timeline wise, I just remember you not being in my life, and all of a sudden you were like in my life a lot, and I that middle area is just grayed out. It's like you know I have no idea how. I remember us like I remember the first time I ever met you. And it was just in random passing at like, you know, in between going to class.
Yeah, that's right. Very, very sparse.
And then I don't remember how we went from that moment to, you know, actually, I think I may have seen you on stage because I used to go to a lot of the plays that were at Mount Sac. And I'm pretty sure I saw you in one of the roles. I don't remember what role it was, but I don't know. There's like 5 different timelines of how I could maybe think of how we got to like me casting you. But once I casted you, you for sure like stole the whole series as far as like being the best, the eye point of like, I want to see him act, you know, or I want to see him in his character.
Oh, shit.
And that was, I think, probably probably one of the best casting choices I think I could have made for that series. Without it, I'm not sure what would have happened. We had a lot of great talent, obviously, but I think bringing you on definitely took it to a whole new level.
It's a short story, but the first time I ever auditioned for a film was for Hellman's Side. And I remember I was thinking, yeah, it was. That was like I believe that was like the first time I auditioned for a film, because I remember you as my transition into film. I remember that, and I remember the audition. It's funny looking at it in retrospect, and it's funny looking at it how like in that time, because at the time I was very, very nervous, because and then when I met you, I was like, oh this guy. You know, I didn't know you at all, and you honestly you had a hipster look, and you. You know, like he had glasses very similar to what he's wearing now. Flannel. He had like I even think maybe he had headphones on. I don't even know. Like, but I do remember thinking like, oh, this is a film guy. You know, and I'm like, I'm not a film guy.
I was typecasted.
I typecasted you as the film guy. And dude, it was just me and one other dude that came for the audition. I remember that, and I was like very nervous because I was like, oh shit. Because I remember the guy very distinctly, because we were both. He would have been.
I don't remember who he was. I don't remember the guy.
Dude, that's so fun. Dude, okay, check this out. So like he was a very tall, like taller than me, lanky sort of guy. He had like a slender man kind of vibe, and like he
was his name Chris?
I can't even remember his name because we didn't talk after the audition.
Yeah, I don't remember him.
But I do remember his vibe though, because he was a very different take on the Rupin character. He was much more like gaunt. He had more of a gaunt, like kind of like ghostly, almost like gnarly, kind of look. He had long hair, and like he just looked very like he had more of like a straightforward, creepy vibe. Whereas I was kind of more like, oh, he's a soft-spoken, but like he's on your side, but he's not kind of like mine.
Yeah, you played someone that would allow the character that you were the alter ego of to get close to, but then you also were very manipulative with your performance. You were menacing.
Yeah, you know,
yeah.
Have you ever seen Cloud Atlas?
Oh, of course, of course, of course.
Do you remember Hugo Weaving's character, the one that's always over Tom Hanks's shoulder?
Yeah,
Looks like the Mad Hatter.
very.
That's who. That's the other guy. That's the kind of Rupin the other guy would have been.
I can see that.
You know, like Schmiegel. You know, like
someone who you look at him and he's like, he's obviously okay. You can't.
Yeah.
Don't go down that road.
Yeah. He had that vibe, and I remember thinking like, oh, I gotta sell this. Like,
yeah,
convince him he can go with the guy you can trust.
No.
Like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super happy, man, that like obviously I made that choice. I feel like that defined the last 10 years of like my film life because we made so many films together. But I want to get back on track. I have a few more questions for you.
Sure. Yeah,
so we can go ahead and wrap this up. Okay, Alex, question for you, buddy. Obviously you've been acting for a long time now. And you started off, from what I remember, in theater. Now, there's obviously actors out there that just start acting in film. They just, they've never touched theater. They just went straight into film. How did being an actor in theater for the stage help you, or how do you use that experience now in your commercial work? And do you think it's beneficial for you as an actor to have that stage background? I know I have my own opinion of it, and I'm pretty sure it's the same as yours, but how do you feel having that stage background influences the way you work on film?
Oh, I think it's invaluable. Like the experience of the stage background is invaluable only because there's so many facets of it that go in a film that are some facets of it are very straightforwardly beneficial, and then some facets of it are actually kind of like sidewinding beneficial. So like the straightforward stuff that's beneficial from having a theater background is film itself is almost like a disjointed medium because you're shooting. Sometimes you have the luxury of shooting chronologically, but most of the times you're not going to shoot chronologically. And so the great thing about theater is that theater itself is like it's all one straight line. Whereas like film, it's a straight line that you snip afterwards, or even just you film at different points in the line, different quarters. So what's great about theater is that having that mindset, it allows you to think of the beginning, middle, and after. Like what happened before all this? What happened? I'm in this shot right now. What happened before this shot? What emotional point am I in this fragment of time? And then what do I need from like what happened before to funnel into this moment now? And theater gives you such a strong background in terms of understanding the bigger picture, honing in on the segment that you're supposed to be in, and getting to that place mentally and emotionally to be the character in that period of time, whether it's like maybe it's a breakup, but then before the breakup, there was somebody else that, had a crush on him and told him that he liked, told him that they had a crush on him. And now he has to think about not just, having two choices between lovers, but then also like trying to make a choice in terms of who this person is with him in front of him and how much they mean to him. Like thinking about all these different things and how that affects the present time that's being shot, I feel like that's what theater helps so much with. The sidewinding benefits of theater is that in a funny way, it helps you, to me at least, because some people are different, but I think that theater really helps with zoning people out that don't matter, like to what you're trying to do. Like theater itself is, you're always like, if you're lucky, you're on stage the whole time.
Yeah.
And during that whole, like you can't pay attention to an audience. You can't pay attention to all the lights or the building, all you can pay attention to is focusing on what reality exists within the space that you've been allotted.
The character, yeah.
The character, not even just character, like the shared space,
Yeah.
Because I think the space makes up a character. It's the work you put into, who you are, but then who you are is relative to who everyone else is, and what role you serve in their life, what role they serve in your life. And then there's the whole environment. Like, are we at a bus stop? Are we at a train station? Are we inside a home? Like all this stuff, like theater allows you to focus on all these things and just focus on what's in your square, And that's what's great when you go to auditions. To me, some people get really nervous at auditions. Like I don't. Because when I go out there, I just think, the moment the camera starts to roll and they call action, like all that matters is what's in the square, in your square, your universe. Outside of that, it's like, okay, these people don't exist during minute that I'm being taped for this audition. So I'll just focus on what's in the square. You know, that's why I love theater. Theater is like, it had trained you to just focus on the square. Jumping straight into film, you know, everyone's different. Some people might jump straight into film and adapt to it really well. I just think like jumping into film, there are certain pitfalls of that, because if you're filming disjointedly and you don't have that theater experience or that understanding of a timeline and how much work and preparation goes into setting up for that timeline and being able to tap into different aspects of the timeline of the story and where you are, like if you don't have some form of training that's teaching you like how to tap into that and understanding like what phase your character is in, for film, then I feel like you're at a disadvantage to somebody who does.
Okay, so Alex, I understand that you currently do have an agent that's helping you get auditions and be represented. Can you talk about how you got your agent or how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so far since I moved here 2 years ago, I have had 2 agents who've represented me both theatrically and commercially. And they were both very different experiences for me, because every agent runs a little differently. There's a different flow with them and they have a different mindset, and how they connect with their clients is really different too. I know when I first started acting, I felt so aware of how ignorant I was about the industry, about how everything works. And so something I learned from my first agent, my experience with my first agent, was how little I understood about how it worked, how the agent-client relationship worked professionally. And not to say that I was like venting them up, I was using them as like a psychological outlet, not at all. But it was just more so on the technical level, like how emails work between us, you know, how it works on casting sites between them and me, like everything between. I didn't really understand it when I first started out. And so I remember with my first agent, that didn't work out. I was in a position where I wasn't sure if my job was going to be stable. And so I kind of put my job as a higher priority because it was paying my bills. And the issue with that was he was expecting me to be all in, which I think any agent who's professional, anyone who's been in the industry long enough, like knows what they want. Like the actor that's all in is the one they want. You know, they want somebody that will be there for every single audition. And at the time I was so nervous about the job and, you know, the subtextual thread of homelessness that I kind of trapped myself mentally. You know, I was afraid. And so I remember sending that agent an email saying like, hey, I can't make it to this audition because I'm worried about my job. And just within 24 hours, they let me go. They cut me off.
Wow.
And that hit me really hard. I didn't get over that for a couple months because I just felt, I don't know, that first time somebody was just like, no, you're not what we're looking for. That's the first time I experienced that. And it was very, you know, we're all kind of bracing ourselves for when that's going to happen. And even when I did brace myself and it did happen, it hit me very hard. You know, it hit me very hard. It froze me up. You know, I wasn't moving forward from that point. And a lot of people don't. They get affected by it for a long time. And so what ended up happening was, thankfully I had a support system. I had a really great network at the time that was there for me. And they helped push me through that phase, you know, that little rough patch. I went back on the hunt for an agent, and I found my current agent, who I've had for over almost a year and a half now. And
Wow.
she's been to me, you know, she's been really cool. Like, that's the thing. After I experienced that rejection / that I got fired pretty much. I was fired. And as an actor, isn't that crazy to be fired as an actor? That sounds so kind of painful.
Like you did the worst thing ever.
Yeah. That's that's the worst thing that could possibly happen, I feel, to an actor. Like, outside of getting horribly injured on set, like being fired from not even just a gig, from the person who's supposed to get you gigs.
Yeah.
Not a good feeling. And it made me reevaluate my mindset, though. I'm actually very thankful. I'm very thankful to that agent, because he laid it to me straight how what his expectations were. He wasn't going to hold my hand through the process and teach me. He wanted a client that already knew what was up and how it worked.
Yeah.
Okay, walking away from that experience, I'm like, I'm not going to look for somebody that is expecting that, because I'm just going to run into the same problem again. and it's gonna create a very strained relationship between us as business partners. So I'm like, okay, moving forward, I'm gonna reevaluate where I'm at right now. I don't know how anything works. I don't know how anything is. I don't even know what's going on with this entertainment world. Like beyond the casting site, I don't know anything. So I'm gonna find somebody, and just be straight up with myself. I'm gonna find somebody that has the patience to explain to me how it works, that is able to communicate with me, that doesn't have 500 clients who they don't really keep up with. Like, I want somebody with like 100 or less clients who has the actual literal time to be able to walk me through certain things. And I really set my mind on that, set my sights on that, set my mind on that. And next thing you know, I managed to get an interview with a really cool agent. I managed to get a really cool interview with her. And I remember walking to the office. I felt she was very Buddhist. She had a green turf. She had green turf in the no shoe policy. And I'm like, I'm with this already. I get the vibe here. There's a certain connectivity here. There's a spiritual connectivity. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody with the patience to help me. And I led with that. I was very open with that. Told her my story. I'm like, this is me. This is who I am. This is where I come from. This is where I'm at right now. And she was completely receptive to that. And she helped me. She really helped me. She continues to help me. So when it comes to an agent, I feel like that's important.
Yeah, man.
Knowing where you're at. Some people talk about fake it till you make it, which I understand. It works for some. Some people can ride that out all the way. But I know for me, it's like, I can't do that. It's hard for me to be disingenuous.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to just be real from the get-go. Tell people what you're expecting, or tell people what your expectation is out the door. And that way, you're just being transparent, maybe you're not in the position right now to just, dedicate 100% of your time to auditions. And to be honest, most people don't have the luxury to be able to just drop everything at the drop of a hat to go to LA or to just go across the city to do an audition.
It's very true.
Yeah, it's definitely a luxury.
It's that, it's funny though, because like it's both a luxury, but it's also a challenge for, because I know actors that if they're confronted with that, okay, I have an audition, but my work wants me to come in, and this is like the third time I'm skipping work for an audition. Mm-hmm. Like, they already achieved that mindset of, I'll just quit the job and find a new one.
That's crazy. It's funny that you say that. That's to us, or to me, that sounds like batshit crazy.
It's that bad.
I'll quit the job and find something else.
Yeah, for this for this Target audition.
And like on the flip side, it's like, if that person also knows that acting is their true calling, like that's their real career, then I can kind of understand that it makes sense to, obviously, I'm not going to put, I want my future to actually be behind, this job that's paying the bills that I don't really like to be at anyway. So I kind of get both sides. It's like you kind of have to find a balance with somewhere in the middle that's ideal. Maybe that's not realistic, but you can't always quit your job at the drop of a hat and find a new job, because you're going to have a record of endless streams of just being hired and being fired within 2 weeks or whatever,
Right.
But you also have to realize that, this is a career that you can easily get stuck in, working a day dead end job. That's not what you wanted to be in the first place, that you got just because you want to pay some bills. But you can easily get stuck in a position that you don't want to be in just because you're too afraid to make the leap of faith to get where you want to be. And obviously you want to work a job that makes you happy. That's your hobby. So it's a give and take.
I agree. I think so too. And it's funny. It's like a cost benefit analysis. You're constantly, I feel as an actor, like, depending on how much work you're getting and the degree, the level of the work you're getting, like, I would say on a high level, depending on the job, like, yeah, you're constantly balancing. You're playing cost, you're playing what's worth more. Like,
yeah,
what decision is worth more, and then which decision can I ride for longer, and then how adaptable are my resources? You know, like if can, can I skip work today? Go to the gig, go back to work, try to like have a good rapport with my manager, and then they might be forgiving. It's all really dependent, you know. It's like it just depends on how good you. I think it's really all dependent on how good you are with people. You know, how good are you with understanding where you're at with somebody else, and how much you can ask for. You know, how much do you give? How much do you ask for? I feel like that's one of the big things about acting. Like depending on where you work too, because some places they have a high turnover, so they don't care if they fire you. Or in other places they just have a huge staff, so that's like if you call out, then you just get somebody else.
Yeah.
They don't have a huge staff, and then it becomes a matter of like, you know, how valuable am I to you for you to let me do this thing?
Yeah.
Tomorrow, you know, it's just all stuff. I think it's. I mean, yeah, some people don't have to make it that complicated. For me, I'm a micromanager, so I always pay attention to these things. But
yeah, you plan, so you're not. That's the whole reason why you're saying that you like to have a plan before jumping into the fire. You know, I totally get it. Alex, I want to ask you. I want to ask you one final question, man, that we can kind of maybe end this whole discussion with. Let's say hypothetically for people watching, if you're an actor, you just moved to LA, or you've been in LA for over maybe a year now, or even longer or less, you know, who knows? Let's say you're not getting the work, or you're putting the work in to go to these auditions, you're putting the work in to train as an actor, but you're not getting the work you want, or you're just not getting any work at all. What could someone do? What can an actor do to continue working, or to, you know, help sell themselves besides getting an agent? I know just to get you started, in one case, you know, you can create your own content. How realistic is that? And what other options do you have as an actor to create your own work?
I want to say, well, before I talk about the producing your own stuff, I also want to say, dump those shitty headshots, dog. Like, like no offense, but like honestly, like it's funny. You have all these great actors in the city. I mean, all these really good people who are very, very talented, and the only thing stopping them from the door is they have a busted up ticket. Like they got a ticket they kind of drop on the floor. It's all dust. It's just not, you know. A lot of it really is the headshot though. Like I've seen people who just updated their headshots with like some really good industry great headshots. They go from like 0 auditions a week to like 5 in a month.
Wow.
They don't get anything for like a whole 2 months, 3 months, like nothing. And they think, oh, it's me. They blame themselves. I'm a horrible talent. No one likes me. No, your headshot just doesn't capture what you are. Like your headshot makes you look like you were printed. Somebody forgot your picture at Kinko's in the printer bin. Like, you don't want that headshot. You know, you want something that shows your value and shows that you're a high quality, you know, person, high quality performer. So like that, the headshot conversation aside, I feel like that's a lot of it though. Like that, like somebody who has like almost like no experience with theater or whatever can get an audition over somebody with like 10 years just because the headshot look like they got.
Wow. Yeah, I guess you have to facilitate that, you know, whatever gets you into the door, you know, whether you have to sell yourself through a picture, you know, it's sad, you know, that sometimes we judge books by their cover. Yeah, but if you know that that's the game, then play the game.
Yeah. If you go to a job interview, are you not going to work? Are you going to show up in a tank top, or are you going to show up in the?
You're right.
And that's the same thing with the headshot. But yeah, sorry, going back to your original point about producing your own work, like you asked about how that helps, or how you would go about doing it in a way that helps your career.
Is that a realistic option for people to kind of help build their own work? Like if you aren't getting work, should you just make your own work?
I've had this conversation before. I think it's a balance. I think it depends on who you are, because like I have a friend who is he has a good following, but he really doesn't like Hollywood. He's an Asian American actor, and he has a following, but he doesn't like playing that game. He doesn't like playing towards the culture of it, and he wants to help people in his ethnicity and his demographic, feel more confident in themselves. Whereas like being a part of Hollywood is, you know, it's in a sense like you're sacrificing a bit of who you are, a bit, in order to cater towards like a different demographic of people. So I'm not going to say either is better or worse. It's just more of just personal choice and preference. So like when I think of a person who really go, because honestly, it's hard. Like both directions are difficult, because if you're going towards this direction, like you have to know how to communicate and connect with people that, you know, may or may not be like you, that are very different from you, and you have to learn how they think in order to communicate, and you know, and how to carry yourself. Whereas like on this side, you're working towards probably people that are a lot more like you. So in a way, it feels easier. But the hard part is, it's like you're less likely to get paid over a longer period of time, and you're investing in yourself, and that's a different mindset. Like you are constantly invested in yourself in that way. Can you have the mindset to like continually produce content without the results that you want? Because the odds are you're not going to get the results you want. The odds are you're not going to get many views in the beginning. Are you able to overcome that? Are you able to stick with it despite not getting the feedback you want as an artist? Whereas like on this side, you know, it's how you look at it. Because if you look at it this side, you're going to the auditions, you're trying to connect with casting directors, you're sending out postcards and emails, all that stuff, and there's there are people that you're trying to build relationships with, and you kind of know who they are, and you just don't know how to reach them. Like that's the hard part here. It's similar here, but on this end, it's like there are so many more people in the world that are available. You know, it just depends on your style and what you're okay with. Like they both take so much work, honestly. Like I've tried to do both, and it takes, they're both different mindsets, and it's very exhausting, because it's kind of like I'm trying to reach out to Hollywood, but then I'm also trying to reach out to just regular consumers of social media content on this side. And they're both different kinds of people, and they're both you're trying to fulfill two very different needs, I feel. Because on this side, it's like you get a gig every once in a while, but you're trying so hard just to get a gig. So you're trying to do all the things that are necessary to increase your likelihood of getting that project that may or may not change your life or change your career, you know? Whereas on this, I just feel like you have more control, but do you have the stamina? You know, do you have the drive and the self-belief? The self-belief, that's hard, because people are writing stuff for you on this side. You know, there's a whole system that's like set up to where they're looking for somebody. Is it you? Not sure, but if you put your time into it, maybe it'll pay off. Whereas on this side, it's like, I have to do everything. I am the producer. I am the writer. I probably am the DP, you know, depending on what kind of style of content you're making. I'm everything on this side, depending on your team too. You know, if you get people to follow you and help you, are you able to pull together your own team? Do you have the people skills? Do you have the producer skills and the talent skills? Like, I feel like those two are very different fields, even though they kind of encompass being a performer. They both do, just in different ways and in a different pace on both sides. So it's like, what it comes down to, man, I think it just comes down to, who are you? What do you like? What are you okay with doing? Can you stick to it? Because what matters is, can you stick to it? That's all that matters at the end of the day to me. Like, I don't care if you feel like this is, you know, more powerful than this. Some people are way more on the influencer end. They think this is the way to make change. Okay, how many videos have you made this week? How many videos have you made this month? Are you reaching out to your viewers? If you're not doing that, then you're not fulfilling this grandiose vision that you have of it. And then on this side, like, well, you know, I want to be a part of Hollywood. I want to make a difference. I want to be on Fresh Off the Boat. I want to be in shows like that. Okay, are you proving yourself to casting directors? You know, are you showing them are you constantly submitting? Are you constantly in contact with your representation? You know, are you figuring out, where do I need to go to Atlanta? Do I have to move to Atlanta for more work? Is that what the opportunity is? Do I have to go to what state? You know, it's you see what I mean though. It's in the necessary steps to maximize either or both options, because whatever you're doing, it better be towards that. Because if it's not, you're kind of, either you're going through a phase that will lead you to, you know, maximizing your career in either end, or you're kind of wasting your time and you're not taking yourself seriously.
Okay. I think that was a great response, dude. And it's funny that you mentioned it, because so I was hoping that would be the last, our closing here, but you actually brought up one more topic that I think is crucial.
Okay.
It's very 2020 or very 2019, whatever you want to call it. How does social media influence your likelihood of getting booked as an actor? Like, let's say you go into an audition, it's you and it's, you know, someone else, and you have 500 followers on your Instagram or your Facebook page.
Sure.
They have 10,000. But let's say you're the better actor. You know, what's your take on having to go into auditions next to influencers or people who have a bigger following or whatever, you know, like how does that play into auditions?
For some people, it's really hard to think about. You know, I feel like that can be very daunting. I don't really think about it. It doesn't really affect me. I think as long as, well, here's the thing. There's two sides to that. But I'll start off by saying, I think if you have a very strong foundational training and you're constantly training and you're always, you know, it's like, if you're a boxer, are you boxing every day? Do you want to go to the Olympics? Then you got to train that hard. So for me, it's like, okay, if you're an actor, you're trying to go in that direction, you know, are you training constantly? Because that's what keeps you in check. That's what keeps you grounded. If you're not training, you're not putting in the work, your subconscious knows that. So when you go into the audition, yeah, maybe you can fool yourself into thinking I'm a great actor, but I haven't put any work. But like at the end of the day, results that matter. So I think, and I've been to casting director Q&As, I've spoken to friends, and I've heard so many different things, man. Like it really depends on the person. Like I've been to, one time I went to a casting director Q&A and somebody asked that question, how big does it, let's be real. Like, does it matter how many followers I have? Is that person just going to get the one up over me? And that particular casting director, very realistic. Like it didn't feel like she was putting on air. She was just saying how it was to her. And what it was to her was, I need somebody who can fulfill the job that I'm putting out. Like I need somebody that can fulfill this character. And that's all that matters to me because that's my job. I need to be able to put the right faces in this show or movie so that the story is told properly. And there are people out there who are casting directors for their living who are exceptionally passionate about their work. And like this particular person, she wanted to be a casting director. She didn't want to be an actor. She didn't want to be a DP. She really wanted to be a casting director. And when you're dealing with people like that, I don't know how many there are, but they're out there. Like if you're like that, who cares about their work to that degree and the integrity of their work, then the follower numbers don't matter to somebody like that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But people in a certain type of profession, you know who you're going to run into unless you really get to know them. On the opposite end, yeah, I've heard people who work for. I knew somebody who, I'm not going to say any names, but they worked in an office for a bit. I'm not going to say what position either because that would hint at who they are. But like when they worked, all that particular group talked about was they focused completely on numbers. How many followers do they have, right? So this industry, I think, is full of people on both ends of the spectrum. It's not. There's no black and white. It's very gray. And depending on who it is that you're talking to and what part of town they are, I don't even think that's I mean, I just said that. But like, depending on where they come from and how they approach their career as a casting director, and what's important to them as an individual, that's something you don't really have control over. You know, sometimes you're lucky. Sometimes you meet somebody who just cares about the integrity of the position, and they just want to tell a really good, believable story. Then again, you go to somewhere else, maybe, I don't know, maybe something more like mainstream, more poppy. I don't know, like a teen type of movie. That's where all the characters are social media influencers. Well, they made it that way on purpose. They wanted to be about, and have that vibe. You know, we want to appeal to the teeny boppers and like, and you know, get the young kids to watch. Then yeah, maybe they'll cast more influencers in that area. But I'll tell you this, like maybe go on one of my favorite movies. Oh, excuse me, one of my favorite shows of all time is Altered Carbon. I think that's one of the coolest sci-fi action dramas ever made. I admire that show so much. And one of the main characters, his name is Will Yoon. He plays one of the protagonist slash antagonist in the show. And I respect him so much as an actor because one, he's an Asian American actor, and two, like he's an amazing performer. Like he's so talented, he's skilled, like he's amazing. And you go on his Instagram page, and it's not like Instagram famous. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Okay, there's something there. Like I think if people care so much about, you know, if your follower numbers matter, well, you know, why don't you look up some of your favorite actors? You know, look up some of your favorite performers. Maybe people who were popular before 10 years ago, people who are popular now. Yeah, maybe they do have social media followings. Maybe they don't. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, sure, having a social media following does help. Like, there's no way that doesn't help. It's in the same sense that having representation doesn't hurt to have. But I don't think people should be focused on that entirely just because there's so many different kinds of people in this industry that have different value systems. Sure, work on your social media following, but you better not be a subpar to, below average actor. Because it's like, okay, there are certain projects where you can get away with being that. But if you aim for integrity and being respected for your skill and your work ethic and just as an artist, amongst your peers, then maybe put more time into the training. It just depends. But that's what I have to say about that.
No, I think that was a phenomenal response, dude. I mean, 100% some great information. I think you're right. It depends on the job. If it's something where they want influencers or they want to reach a certain audience because they know by casting this person, they're going to bring in this following, then it makes sense to kind of favor that. But if you're in it for the art, the creativity, the passion, the love for acting and what that means to you, then do the training, do the work so you can talk the talk and also walk the walk. Right. It makes sense that it doesn't hurt to also have the following too, but it's not always one or the other. It could be both, or it just varies. But dude, I think that was a great discussion we had, man. I'm gonna go ahead and I think I'm gonna sign us off. Alex, it was amazing having you, dude. Please give us a couple of plugs if you have any films that you're working on, or your Instagram as well, things that you want us to check out. I want people to make sure that they get some eyes on your stuff.
Yeah, please. So my Instagram, once again, is Yo Nishino, YONISHINO. You can also follow some content I'm creating on my Space Cowboy Now, at Space Cowboy Now channel. It's like a sci-fi comedy it's something you'd see like on Adult Swim. That's the vibe I'm trying to go for there with that personal project. Check me out on IMDb. It's always good to have those clicks. Alex Nishino, IMDb. I have a project coming up right now I'm really excited about. I would say it's almost a farcical comedy. I play a detective who's on the hunt for, let's just say I'm trying to help a lady out.
That sounds interesting.
But thank you. I appreciate it.
No worries, man. It's always a pleasure having you, man, on the show. It's always great catching up. Again, I'm Alexander. You can check me out at alexander.hogard. That's HOGGARD. We'll have links in the description below. And guys, I will see you next time.